Hey, what's up? Dave with Brazos Barbell. Today starts the last week into my competition here on Friday, and so I thought it'd be a good idea to talk about some of the strategies that I use to ensure that I perform well on competition day and that my athletes do the same. So some of the misconceptions here would be that rest should be prioritized, and I really think that's a big mistake going in, especially if somebody has had a really good training block heading into the competition. Like last week, I finished with a big PR squat of 300 kilos. I pulled 350 kilos, so 771 pounds. My bench has been pretty consistently above 400, and so all of those things are really positives for me. And so the last thing that I would want to do is get worse heading into the meet. So even though there were plenty of times that I was pretty fatigued during training. I didn't feel all that great warming up for the 300 kilo squat, but when I got to the heavier weights, things were really moving. So fatigue isn't always going to mean that you're going to perform poorly, but if we rest too much and our training status gets worse, if we lose some of the skill that we acquire, some of the strength that we acquired, then a lot of the training that we've done is wasted. So a lot of what we want to do going into a competition is going to be a lot of the same things that we do when we're designing normal blocks in the first place. So if you are setting up a program where you're going to be performing well on certain days, for me, I have 3 days that are priority days, one for each lift. So Mondays are my biggest priority deadlift session, Thursdays for bench press, and Fridays for squat. So if consistently it's been predictable that I can have my best training days for those lifts, there's no reason for me to change my schedule heading into the competition. The only caveat to that would be that obviously I need all 3 of those lifts to be good on the same day. So there may be a different order that I want to do, but if I've been maintaining a pretty high amount of volume on my squat or my bench press, whatever, and it's been improving every week, then me maintaining that going into the meet won't mean that I get worse. So the problem would be that if I get too far away from it, if I start getting rid of my intensity or reducing my volume too much, then I get going to meet and I end up feeling worse. I'm sure some of you will identify with this, but I know I've had some meets in the past where I show up, I just don't feel like I have my legs underneath me. I feel fresh, but I've gotten some of my middle warm-ups and it just doesn't feel like I have the same explosiveness or strength that I had during training. So there's been plenty of other times, especially in training, that I'm warming up and I'm feeling really tight and the training goes better than expected. So we can't think that we can't go into the meets assuming that fatigue is a bad thing, but for sure getting rid of our training status is going to be the worst thing that you can do. So a lot of this goes into your training in the first place and how you're looking at the variables. So here's where it's really important to make sure that you're tracking your volume or tracking your intensity, and so you know the most that you can do and still make progress, or I guess a better way to say, what is the least you can do and maintain your progress, and what's the most you could do until you start going backwards. So if you're designing a block, which in this case I was able to linearly progress every week going in, if I don't do more than what I did the previous 3 weeks, which I was able to get better every single week, and off of other blocks I know that I should be able to still progress going into this week. Now, my bench press is probably the main one that I want to manipulate some variables for. That one has very much been affected by the, intensity of my squatting. So I'll take more days off during this week, but I still will maintain, in this case, I maintain about 80% of the volume that I was doing on the previous week. So I'm not reducing a whole lot, but I'm ordering things in a way that makes sure that my arms are fresh enough that they're not fatigued from the heavy squats. Luckily, I got through that last session on Friday without my arms feeling worse than when I went in. So this week should be a really good indicator of that. So I'll probably actually get some heavy bench press training and even above what I've done on other weeks heading in. But again, it's all about setting up linear periodization so that we are going to be performing at our best when it matters, being that competition time. So the other model would be setting up this high fatigue, your last week heading in or the week before it, you get to where you're performing worse than what you do during other blocks, but that fatigue would be really high. Hopefully you taper and then we get some super compensation going in. That can potentially be a real thing, but it's just really volatile and really unpredictable. So if we can set up other blocks, and through repetition we know that the patterns that people have can be predictable when it comes to competition time, I think that's going to be an advantage over the volatile block where we push somebody past their limits and then deload, and hopefully they end up getting better than what they were. So that one can work. People do it, and it works well. But as far as predictability and at least being able to come up with a good competition plan, I think it's much better to set up a training block that is in line with the other blocks you've done and is predictable, and then you can still match or exceed even the numbers that you've done in training, because we are wanting some fatigue to go away. But the main concern would just be making sure that we don't lose our fitness. So for today, I actually did essentially the same workout for at least my high bar squatting that I did last week. I worked up to a top single around an 8 RPE, some sets of 5, didn't drop any load on those. So for my bench press, worked up to a heavy single. I think I have planned a 5x5 there. And then deadlift, I'll work up to about my opener, and then some light triples. And I'll still be doing even the belt squats this week. So other weeks, those have been a big thing for me to make my squat. Even though I feel a little bit beat up earlier in the week, I still get sore from this workout. Later in the week, I end up performing better because I was able to push hard in this session. So the take-home message for this would be not to think that you need to get perfectly well rested in order to perform best at your competition, but that you need to set up a predictable training method and actually keep running that method into the competition, maybe with some reductions to ensure things like, in my case, it's my arms are fresh. I make some modifications, but I'm really not reducing it in a way that should take away that there's not gonna be a high risk that I lose some of my fitness. So hopefully that video is helpful. If you like it, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll see you next time.